He is my friend.
Just stay here, me? Okay.
No, he's not being paid. He's not being paid for the service. I'd like to begin by thanking you all for joining us in this time and in this space. My mother, the good Roman Catholic, is fond of saying that this Holy Week consists of one long service that is split into different parts. And so the service begins with Maundy, Thursday, continues today with Good Friday, and the final celebration is in 2 days on Easter Sunday. And so the service today will go without a whole lot of narration at all, and at the end of the service, we will end with a piece of music. There will be no benediction because the service continues. And so after that final piece of music, I invite you to spend as much time as you need or want within this space, reflecting on what happened today in the service, or feel free when you're ready to just depart. But thank you for being with us on this second service of our Holy Week. We have a responsive call to service today. Today is one of the gray areas of the Christian year, a day when the lights are dimmed and the sky feels overcast even if it isn't, a day when theologians and poets feel as if a heavy veil is drawn over the heart and mind, an inexplicably sad day. We come to be with you, not really wanting to face the reality of this day.
We resist the gray areas, prefer to see everything in black and white, look for cloudless, sunny skies, try not to read between the lines, throw in a bright color or two to try to enliven the scene.
We come to be with you, not really wanting to face the reality of this day.
In the gray light of early morning, after a night in the ecclesiastical high court and denial by one of his own circle, Jesus found himself at the gates of the reluctant Pilate, who promptly tried to hand him back to the Jews.
We come to be with you, not really wanting to face the reality of this day.
And though the sun rose that morning, the whole world turned gray for one who found himself without friend or helper, faced with drinking a cup he'd prayed would be turned away from him, knowing that life was about to be drained out of him.
We come to be with you, not really wanting to face the reality of this day. We are invited to accompany Jesus through this gray day, to be witnesses to his suffering, to keep silence before his cry of dereliction. In our imaginations, let us trudge through Jerusalem until we come to the place of the cross, and let us not turn our faces away. We come to be with you, not really wanting to face the reality of this day.
In this gray day lie all the sorrows and failings of a humanity that strives for high success, yet it comes up against human limitations and falls to the ground in despair. A humanity whose peace plans give way to guns and whose political promises become papers in filing cabinets.
We come to be with you, not really wanting to face the reality of this day.
Here is a day marked by the brokenness of the world, but it is not a day to wallow in misery or to indulge in morbid thoughts about the crucifixion. It is simply a somber, dignified day when we remember how it was for Jesus and find at the foot of the cross a place to lay down ours and the world's sorrow.
We come to be with you, not really wanting to face the reality of this day. On gray days, it is hard to see clearly, difficult to understand things that aren't clear. Yet all we are asked to do today is to be present to the sacred story as it is retold, and to the inexplicable, mysterious, wondrous transaction that was and still is taking place. We come to be with you, not really wanting to face the reality of this day. Yet here we are, walking throughout the night with you. Emmanuel, God with us, love incarnate.
Bitter was the night, thought the cock would crow forever. Bitter was the night, before the break of day. Saw you passing by, told them all I didn't know you. Bitter was the night, before the break of day. What did Judas do? Sold him for a bag of silver. Bitter was the night, before the break of day. Bitter was the night, thought the cock would crow forever. Bitter was the night, before the break of day.
On this day of reflection and witness, let's listen to these words from John's Gospel and think about those who walked with Jesus as he faced the grayness, as the veil begins to draw to a close.
After Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Now, Judas, who had betrayed him, also knew the place, because Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with police from the chief priests and the Pharisees, and they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that was to happen to him, came forward and asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" They answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus replied, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they stepped back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he, so if you are looking for me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the word that he had spoken, "I did not lose a single one of those whom you gave me." Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it, struck the high priest's slave, and cut off his right ear. The slave's name was Malchus. Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword back into its sheath. Am I not to drink the cup that the Father has given me?
In some ways, it was all predictable. Of course, I knew where Jesus would be. We met in that garden many times. So when they asked me if I'd be willing to give him up for a bag of silver, I would. This is not what I expected was going to happen. It was not like I planned this out. But Jesus was also not who he was supposed to be, was he? He was supposed to be the Messiah, the chosen one, the one who would come and get rid of the Romans for us. But no, Romans are still here, and it doesn't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon. So what's the point? All this talk about love, compassion, mercy, what does that all mean in the face of Roman occupation? We've been waiting for so long for this Messiah, and Jesus comes speaking about love rather than freedom. So I did what I thought I had to do. I got paid. So many might call me a traitor, but I was waiting for something that would make a difference in the world. Did I get it? No! I didn't. So who is the real traitor? I feel so lost. So confused. Jesus really never did anything that horrible. But they still want to put him to death? I wonder if maybe true strength actually lies in the words and the actions of Jesus, and not the power, the influence, physical intimidation, and prestige of those chief priests, scribes, Pharisees. Seems they seem to feel. It can sometimes be all so confusing. But what is done is done.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there?
So the soldiers, their officer, and the Jewish police arrested Jesus and bound him. First, they took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was better to have one person die for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus, since that disciple was known to the high priest. He went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest, but Peter was standing outside at the gate. So the other disciple who was known to the high priest went out and spoke to the woman who guarded the gate and brought Peter in. The woman said to Peter, "You are not also one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the slaves and the police had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing around it and warming themselves. Peter also was standing with them and warming himself. Then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teachings. Jesus answered, I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in the synagogue and in the temple where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They know what I said. When he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, Is this how you answer the high priest? Jesus answered, If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me? Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. And they asked him, You are not also one of his disciples, are you? He denied it and said, I am not. One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, Did I not see you in the garden with him? Again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, the cock crowed.
I've spent all night guarding this gate at the home of the high priest. It's been a cold night, and yet I wasn't lucky enough to be standing around the fire all night, like the men. But such is the lot of a woman these days. Men, they all think they're so important. And then, the strangest thing happened. Just as the sun was rising and the rooster crowed, that man who came here following along the one that had been arrested, he broke into tears. And he cried out something like, I denied him. He was right. I denied him. How could I deny him? I wonder if it had something to do with the fact that I asked him if he was one of that man's followers. And he adamantly denied he was, like I hadn't seen them together before. I only asked because I was curious to see if he would admit knowing him. I already knew they were together, but he was adamant that he was not a follower, and I wasn't the only one who asked. But that reaction, it was as if someone had punched him in the stomach. I don't get it. If his friend meant so much to him, why would he deny knowing him? No one was threatening him or anything. Yeah, sure, his friend was arrested, but you would think if you were brave enough to follow this far, you would be brave enough to admit you knew him. Oh well, I don't understand it. He denied it over and over, and now he's crying and muttering to himself. Kind of makes me wonder who that guy they arrested really is. He obviously made some kind of impression on his friend out here. Is he someone we should be afraid of? What did he say or do, I wonder, that had such an effect on someone who follows him?
Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there? Were you there when they
Then they took Jesus from Caiaphas to Pilate's headquarters. It was early in the morning. They themselves did not enter the headquarters so as to avoid ritual defilement and to be able to eat Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered, "If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews replied, "We are not permitted to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill what Jesus had said when he indicated the kind of death he was to die. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no case against him, but you have a custom that I release someone for you at the Passover. Do you want me to release for you the King of the Jews?" They shouted in reply, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a bandit.
Barabbas. They are letting me go. This makes no sense to me at all. In all honesty, I deserve to be here. I, after all, am a thief, and yet the crowd has demanded that I be set free. And in my place, they are going to put on trial this one who I can't really say has done anything wrong, other than to talk about love and peace. Well, he has said that he was sent by God, but I have heard of many others who have said the same thing. So what is different about this one? It is actually kind of funny. I heard that some of his followers, that they think that he is the Son of God, and that may be why they are going to put him on trial. But my name, Barabbas, actually does mean the Son of the Father. How strange is that? Because I am the one who is being let go. I would have thought that the Romans and all those powerful people up at the temple would be more worried about the people like me, or people who are actually raising arms to kick the Romans out of the country, than some misguided guy from Nazareth. What are they so afraid of? I wonder if there is actually more here than meets the eye. Maybe this guy and his followers actually do pose a threat to the Romans and the temple. I'm not sure how, but maybe they do. Well, I guess that's not my problem, because I am being set free. Although I do feel bad for this guy. Really, it should have been me. I wonder what this means for those who have traveled with him all this time. As I said, what I can do, I am just a thief. But even though I am just a thief, he was actually really nice to me and treated me like I mattered. That hasn't happened for a long time. It is very sad that someone who seemed so good has to be treated in this way. I don't think that this is going to turn out well for him. I can't imagine he ever imagined that this would happen to him. I never thought I was going to get out of jail. I thought I was going to be the one that died.
Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Were you there?
Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. And the soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they dressed him in a purple robe. And they kept coming up to him and saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and striking him on the face. Pilate again went out and said to them, "Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no case against him." So Jesus came out, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." When the chief priests and the police saw him, they shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Take him yourself and crucify him. I find no case against him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and according to that law, he ought to die because he has claimed to be the Son of God." Now, when Pilate heard this, he was more afraid than ever. He entered his headquarters again, and he asked Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer. Pilate therefore said to him, "Do you refuse to speak to me? Do you not know that I have the power to release you, the power to crucify you?" Jesus answered him, "You would have no power over me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are no friend of the emperor. Everyone who claims to be a king sets himself against the emperor." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus outside and sat on the judge's bench at the place called the Stone Pavement, or in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now it was the day of preparation for the Passover, and it was about noon. And he said to the Jews, "Here is your king." They cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" And the chief priests answered, "We have no king but the emperor." They handed him over to them to be crucified.
I have heard the stories of this man who seemed to be stirring up so much trouble. But now that I have met him, I am not sure that I understand what all this fuss is about. It's not like he is physically an imposing man. Actually, he is rather small and soft-spoken, yet they seemed to be so wary of him. I tried to let him go, gave them the option, but it seems as if the vocal minority has gotten their way. I ended up releasing that criminal Barabbas, who should really have been put on trial, and now they have demanded that I crucify this one, Jesus. I know that most of those who were out there this morning don't really know what is going on. But those Pharisees sure are vocal and were yelling a lot for this man's death. I suppose this makes my life easier. Yeah, he seemed harmless, but as I listened to what he was saying, I can see that he had become a danger if more people actually listened. He was speaking in a way that Rome would have not been happy about, and he was challenging both the authority of Rome and of the temple, which helps us to keep the common folk in line. So I guess that this is the best. It is time that we all do our duty. No escaping the life that we have and the responsibility that goes with it. That's the end of this mess then. Time to move along.
Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Were you there? Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Were you there?
So they took Jesus, and carrying the cross by himself, he went out to what is called the place of the skull, which in Hebrew is called Golgotha. There they crucified him with two others, one on either side with Jesus between them. Pilate has also had an inscription written and put on the cross, and it read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this inscription because the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, in Latin, and in Greek. Then the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews, but this man said, 'I am the King of the Jews.'" Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and divided them into 4 parts, one for each soldier. They also took his tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from the top. So they said to one another, "Let us not tear it, but cast lots for it to see who will get it." This was to fulfill what the scripture says, "They divided my clothes among themselves, and for my clothing they cast lots." And that is what the soldiers did. Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus was his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." And he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home.
my son has been arrested. There are no words no mother should ever have to say. They're taking him away. I can hear the crowds gathering outside. They're getting so loud. Jesus, he told me I should just stay here, that I shouldn't try to follow the crowds today. But how can I? When we watched Jesus stand there before Pilate, I thought, this is it. This is the moment when they realize what a mistake they are making. Surely, Pilate will help them see some sense. Surely, they're going to let my son go. He hasn't committed any crimes. All he was ever done was help people. And they all turned against him. They released a thief instead. People who just last week were reaching out to touch the hem of his robe were now screaming at Pilate, "Crucify my boy! Crucify him." And all I could do was stand there and watch. I don't even remember how I got home. And now it's time. Time to walk with my son to Golgotha. Look at all those people. Where is my son? I see him. What have they done? Why is he wearing a wreath of thorns on his head? It looks like they have already been beating him. Oh, my boy, what have they done to you? He looks so weak, and he can hardly walk. Why isn't anybody stopping this? He's never hurt anyone. He doesn't deserve this. It's wrong. I'm so sorry, Jesus. But I can't look. I can't watch them put my son on that awful cross. I wish I could close my ears. That sound of the nails being hammered into his flesh and wood will haunt me forever. The cries of pain from all of these men, please make it stop. Oh, Jesus, my boy, look at you. I wish I could make this all go away for you. I can't protect you anymore. A mother should never have to see her son come to this. My boy, my son, I love you. Please, won't somebody help him? Where are all those men who called him a friend, a rabbi, a brother? Why is this happening to my son? I love you, Jesus, and I'm sorry. I love you. I'll stay here with you. I promise you won't be alone.
Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there? Were you there
After this, when Jesus knew that all was now finished, he said, in order to fulfill the scripture, "I am thirsty." A jar full of sour wine was standing there. So they put a sponge full of the wine on a branch of hyssop and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the wine, he said, "It is finished." Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Since it was the day of preparation, the Jews did not want the bodies left on the cross during the Sabbath, especially because that Sabbath was a day of great solemnity. So they asked Pilate to have the legs of the crucified men broken and the bodies removed. Then the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once blood and water came out. He who saw this has testified so that you also may believe. His testimony is true, and he knows that he tells the truth. These things occurred so that the scripture might be fulfilled, "None of his bones shall be broken." And again, another passage of scripture says, "They will look on the one whom they have pierced." After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices in linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there.
What happens now? So many of us have believed and followed, and now the one that we were following has been laid in a tomb. This was not what was supposed to happen. Things were supposed to be so different than the way that they turned out. Nicodemus and I were the only ones that were there at the end, and I took a huge chance asking for Jesus' body. But we couldn't let him hang there until after Passover. We needed to do something out of respect for who he was, how much he meant to us, and how much we loved him. Everyone else seems to have scattered, and I can understand why. They must all be terrified because we never expected that they would kill Jesus just for speaking out about a world based on love, justice, mercy, and compassion. But I guess it does make sense, doesn't it? All of those things that go against what is happening in the world right now. I have been in the shadows for so long, afraid to come out in public as a follower, all because I was afraid of what I might have to face. Yet my fear of what I might have to face, and here is poor Jesus, killed for what he said, what he believed. Is this the end? What is tomorrow going to bring? I wish I knew, but I do know this. Doesn't matter what they have done. I will never forget Jesus and what he said, what he did, the love with which he lived, and the message that he was trying to give to all of us. I just hope that others never forget too.
Jesus, we are here. Jesus, we are here. Jesus, we are here. We are here for you. Jesus, we are here. Jesus, we are here. Jesus, we are here. We are here for you. Jesus, we are here. Jesus, we are here. Jesus, we are here. We are here for you. Jesus, we are here. Jesus, we are here. Jesus, we are here. We are here for you.
Let us pray. God of mystery and wonder, because we know the ending of the story, it's tempting for us to ignore the darkness of this day. It's tempting for us to go about our business as usual. It's tempting for us to move too quickly to the dawn of light on Easter morning. But give us courage and strength on this day to live for a while in the darkness, to set aside comfort and pleasure, to feel the darkness in which so many of your children dwell, the darkness into which your Son Jesus entered. As we reflect on the frailty of Christ, remind us of the frailty of all life. As we cringe at the suffering of Christ, make us mindful of the suffering throughout the world. As we witness the death of Christ, bring us back full circle to the beginning of Lent, to the wisdom of Ash Wednesday, the awareness that each one of us was created in love through your creation. Gracious God, deep in the human heart is an unquenchable trust that life does not end with death. Like a seed which is buried in order to bring forth life, Christ goes into the tomb to usher in new life. We trust that we too will be raised to new life in this world, here and now. In the mystery that lies beyond physical death, we trust that the whole world will be born anew, that your kingdom is coming as a new heaven and a new earth. On this day of darkness, it is for this kingdom that we boldly pray.
Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. What they do to me, they do to you. What they do to you, they do to themselves. What they do to themselves, they do to one another. What is done to another is done also to